I'm slightly scared of Josh Dobbs. That's a phrase I never thought I would ever hear.
I am. He's a smart guy, aerospace engineer. I don't know if you heard about that. They mentioned that once or twice on the broadcast.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Monkey Knife Fights NFL Week 18 preview show. I'm Dan Watkins. Joining me, as always, the great Nick Whalen of Rotowire.com. Nick, what's up, buddy? How we doing?
Doing well. Kind of suffering through our first Thursday in 17 weeks without a game tonight, which I know Thursday night football gets a bad rap. We haven't had the greatest slate of games these last couple of years, but I already find myself kind of longing for football tonight, and it's not going to come. So we have a long wait ahead of us until the 2-game slate on Saturday, obviously a big slate on Sunday. But I think I speak for all of us when I say the football world will be focused on what's going on at the bank on Saturday night.
Absolutely. We'll get to that in a minute. I think we got to talk about the big story here, and not just the NFL, but all of sports and the entire sports world. And that's the situation surrounding Damar Hamlin and his hopeful full recovery at some point here. We'll point out we're recording this show on Thursday, so the latest information we have is positive. It's good news. The Bills relaying the message Thursday morning from Hamlin's medical team at the University of Cincinnati that he's shown remarkable improvement. He's still in critical condition, but he's neurologically intact, making steady progress. Ian Rappaport following that up, that he's opened his eyes and he's responsive. And then Coley Harvey, who's been just absolutely crushing it from a reporting standpoint for ESPN this week, saying that Hamlin is gripping the hands of family members. So these are all great developments and signs. Anything you want to add to this, Nick?
No, you summed it up really well. I think it's obviously a fairly unprecedented situation for the league. I know there's a lot of criticism on Monday night as far as, the NFL's initial handling of the situation. But I think as more time has passed, a lot of people come out of this looking good, from the medical staff in Cincinnati to the way that the coaches on both sides handled it, the players, the league as a whole, and even the fans, right? I mean, I think this is one of those moments that can kind of sometimes go either way in terms of social media and the comments people make. But for the most part, with a few exceptions, I think this is going to be an event that we look back on and obviously really, really scary for the Bills, really scary for Damar Hamlin. But as these positive updates come, I think it's somewhat of a galvanizing moment for the NFL when a lot of people came together and kind of created some good out of what was for several days here, really scary situation. But you mentioned it. The important thing is, we've gotten these kind of breadcrumbs from the Bills over the last couple of days, and everything is kind of cautiously positive, but it really feels like as of today, Dan, that the positive news is kind of accelerating, and it feels like, the doctors and the Bills and Damar Hamlin's family are more encouraged than ever about the direction that he's moving. And we should note there's a press conference that's about to start any minute. So we can, kind of work in some updates if we get them throughout the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to the member of the Bills training staff that administered CPR on the field that night, because he literally saved Damar Hamlin's life Monday night on the field. So as we head into week 18 here, a little PSA, some housekeeping for you guys. We've heard you, we listened, and we did something about it. We have a brand new app. It's updated. Our Monkey Knife Fight app is updated, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, look at this thing. It's so much better. Nick, I don't know if you've checked it out yet. The scrolling, it's just so much better. No longer will it just kick you back to the beginning, but it's like you're playing a video game and like you're role playing guy, and you have to go through the missions again because you hit a wrong button. No, now it's much more like the internet, the web app or the web page, where you can just scroll and easily find everything. I love it. Have you checked it out yet?
Yeah, I have. It looks great. I try to stay on top of updating my apps, and when I saw that one on my phone, I went right to it. It looks fantastic, like you said. Kind of a popular demand situation. I typically set my lineups on Monkey Knife Fight, or my array of props on the computer. But yeah, the app looks fantastic, and looking forward to using it. Not only for the NFL playoffs for Week 18, but the NBA as well going forward.
So it's the final week of the regular season. It's always an interesting one from a fantasy and a gambling perspective. Who's resting starters, who's got nothing to play for, who might be tanking. Chicago, who's trying to get a good look at a rookie quarterback with the Washington Commanders and Sam Howell. But Nick, let's talk about the Bears for a second. So let's say somehow they end up with the first overall pick. What are you doing if you're the general manager of the Chicago Bears? Are you taking a quarterback first overall? Does Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis impress you? Do you trade for an absolute bag? Or do you take someone else, maybe a home wrecker like Will Anderson or Jalen Carter on defense?
I think you got to go with one of the latter two options. And I would go with option number 2, which is, trade that pick for a quote bag. You have to remember that the Bears already traded their second round pick, which as of right now would be the 33rd overall pick in this draft,
right?
In the Chase Claypool deal. So I think there's some motivation to recoup some value from that trade. And we've seen, I've heard the argument that nobody views Bryce Young or CJ Stroud like a Trevor Lawrence or an Andrew Luck or, whoever you want to throw out there. Yeah, I get that. Maybe they're not quite on that level of prospect, but year in and year out, almost every year, multiple teams talk themselves into quarterbacks who might not be that good, right? Zach Wilson went number 2 overall. The then Redskins traded a massive package to get RG3. I think there's going to be a team out there. There are enough QB needy situations where even if the Bears are picking at number 2, I think you have that same option. There's going to be a team that falls in love with CJ Stroud or Will Levis or God forbid, Anthony Richardson. It's all possible. So if I'm Chicago, I am auctioning that pick off to the highest bidder. And, ideally, maybe you're picking up an extra first round pick this year. I would rather have 2 picks in the top 12 than just the number 2 pick, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there are several teams that have multiple picks, several teams that are going to be willing to mortgage future draft capital. Maybe you could even pick up an impact player. Chicago just has so many needs at this point. And obviously getting, Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, that helps the defense, but that doesn't really change the bottom line for me. You need multiple pieces on both sides of the ball to get this thing moving in the right direction.
So what you're saying though, is that you're committed to Justin Fields still, if you're Chicago.
Yeah, I think so. I think, I'm a Bryce Young guy. I think he's going to be good. I'm not too worried about the size, but to me, I don't look at this draft and say, man, we're going to be kicking ourselves if we don't take CJ Stroud. He's going to I just don't think there's that level of prospect in this draft where Justin Fields has been good enough to me that I don't feel like there's that much pressure to change the quarterback. I think there would be a mini revolt in Chicago if they just got rid of Justin Fields, right? He's kind of the one good thing that's come out of the season. And I understand he has a ways to go as a passer. I totally understand that. But I think, given that you spent a high first round pick on Justin Fields not that long ago, and it did feel like he took a pretty big step forward this year, I think it would be pretty crazy to just kind of punt on that all of a sudden, coming out of his second NFL season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fact that they're resting him this weekend and that Nathan Peterman will be on our TV screens once again.
Well, hey, Justin Fields has a hip injury. Okay. They're not resting him. He has a very, very serious hip injury.
That's right. And we all need to see Nathan Peterman one more time in our lifetimes. We'll see how many picks he throws Sunday. But let's start with the 2 Saturday games. We got the Chiefs at the Raiders, and then we got the Titans and the Jags, the battle for the AFC South. But first, let's quickly talk about that AFC West matchup. The trial run of Jarrett Stidham continues. Las Vegas taking a serious look at him. Are they taking a serious look at him now, Nick? Last week we were a little skeptical, but it's proof that I think last week showed that he at least belongs as a backup in this league, the way he balled out against the 49ers.
Yeah, I'll try to get through this quickly so we can get into the real meat and potatoes of Saturday's slate. But yeah, I think, everybody had, whatever the opposite of sky high expectations is, sky low expectations for Jarrett Stidham. I thought if there was one team going into last week that would really just kind of lay down, given everything that had happened with Derek Carr and the recent losses, I thought it would be the Raiders. And, they were in such a tough spot against San Francisco, and Stidham balled out. He really did. I know he had 2 picks, but wildly exceeded expectations, especially against that 49ers defense that even good quarterbacks have struggled this year. So it's interesting now because obviously the Raiders don't have anything to play for. The Chiefs still do, especially depending on what happens with that Cincinnati Buffalo game, which frankly, I don't see that being resumed at any point, but we'll see. Either way, the Chiefs still want to win this game for seeding purposes. And all of a sudden now there's kind of some expectations for Jarrett Stidham. And I think people are being realistic, but he played well enough last week that, this is somewhat of an audition for next year. I think he would have to be just absolutely incredible for the Raiders to consider, starting him in 2023. But when you're a guy in his position, these are the opportunities that you have to take advantage of. So chances are this is a game that the Chiefs control throughout, but they haven't been dominant over the last couple of months. They've been winning games, but it hasn't been super convincing. So I would not be surprised if the Raiders are able to hang around and we see a lot of points on the board in the early window on Saturday.
So Stidham's number is 229.5 passing yards. He threw for 365 last week against San Francisco. KC giving up about 223.5 per game. So right around in that window. Devontae Adams is going to play. Darren Waller is going to play. The Raiders are healthy on offense. Defense, different story. Can Stidham get to 230 yards?
I think he can. I mean, it's not like he had a crazy number of attempts last week, and obviously some long ones to Devontae Adams, really helped that total. But it's not like he threw the ball 50 times. I mean, 23 of 34. I think it's totally possible that he throws the ball 40 plus times in this game. I mean, if you're the Raiders, you're not exactly looking to establish the run here in week 18. So I think it's kind of a let it rip game. And you just see what you have in Jarrett Stidham. And look, if he comes out and throws 3 picks and you lose by 20, so be it. I think that's kind of the attitude that the Raiders have to have going into this game. So yeah, chances are he doesn't play as well as he did last week. I don't know if maybe the 49ers just weren't quite prepared. Now there is some tape out there on Stidham, but I think this is a pretty friendly number over on MKF.
Yeah, I like it. I hit the more as well. Patrick Mahomes on the other side, 290.5 passing yards is his more or less. He's thrown for 291 or more in 11 of 16 games, including 292 versus Vegas earlier this season on that Monday night game. The Raiders, they're ranked 29th against the pass, and they're beyond banged up on defense. But any concern that the Chiefs just get up big and pull the starters here in the second half?
In theory, yes. But I've also thought that for like the last 8 weeks with the Chiefs. I thought that last week against Denver. We thought it against Seattle when they were 10-point favorites. We thought that when they played Houston. We thought that when they played at Denver in week 14, and they struggled in every single one of those games. So I don't know, man. At some point, it feels like it's going to come back around, and the Chiefs are going to remind us that, oh, yes, we have Patrick Mahomes. He's probably going to be the MVP. And Mahomes' numbers have been fine, but they're not piling up points in the way that we're used to seeing from the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's become a situation where each week it's like I'm kind of terrified to bet against Kansas City or take the under on Patrick Mahomes' numbers because you still feel like that explosion is going to come at some point. But I mean, this is a team that's only covered like 4 times all season. It's just been a weird year for Kansas City. So once again, here we go. It's another really advantageous matchup. They're heavy favorites. Like you said, the Raiders are banged up on defense. I'll go more on Mahomes, but I think this could be another one of those situations where it feels like Kansas City is on cruise control, but all of a sudden you look and it's like a 24-17 game with 8 minutes left.
And also he's like 430 yards away from the record. So maybe if he has a big first half, they're going to leave him in there and he tries to go for it. So I'm going to hit the more here as well, just because I don't like taking the less on Patrick Mahomes, no matter how shaky Kansas City has been. All right, moving on. It's the marquee matchup we've all been waiting for. Titans at Jacksonville, the battle for the AFC South, and a major step for the Jags as well, Nick. A non-Thursday night primetime game. I know you wanted that Sunday night spot, but you're getting Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, the full ESPN ABC crew, Saturday night in Jacksonville. So it's not a bad Saturday night. And I saw the Jags teased the return of the teal end zones this weekend too.
Oh, yeah, they're going maximum teal. The whole field might be painted teal. I'm not even sure. I saw that Instagram video just a few minutes before we started. And yeah, it's a little bit of a tease. I assume it's the end zones, but yeah, maybe the whole field, kind of like a Boise State type of approach. I'd be okay with that. I wanted the Sunday game for sure, mostly for rest purposes because, Tennessee last played on Thursday. The Jags, of course, played on Sunday. And a lot of Jacksonville's key players were out midway through the third quarter. So there is that, but it's still a pretty substantial advantage for Tennessee, especially because Derrick Henry didn't even play in week 17 against Dallas. So, I'm a little nervous about this game. Like, obviously I know better than to trust the Jags in almost any circumstance. We've been burned before, to put it lightly. But they're 6-point favorites here. They're going up against Josh Dobbs, who looked pretty good, I thought, relative to expectations against Dallas last week. So I would much rather face Malik Willis. But to me, this just comes down to can they control Derrick Henry? You don't even have to stop Derrick Henry, but Derrick Henry cannot have like 175 yards in this game. To me, that's really Tennessee's only hope. You have to force Josh Dobbs to beat you. And if he just has the game of his life with maybe the worst receiving core in the league, I guess you have to live with that. But stopping Derrick Henry is first and foremost. And the other thing is the Jags, the running game has been up and down. The Titans have been very good against the run this season. They held Travis Etienne to like 30 yards last time they played, even though that was a blowout victory for the Jaguars. So I trust the Jags passing offense, but they're going to need to be able to run the ball at some point.
Absolutely. But let's talk about Trevor Lawrence here. 258.5 passing yards is his line at MKF. He's reached 259 in 8 of 16 games this season, but that does include a career high 368 yards against the Titans about a month ago in their first matchup. Tennessee ranks dead last in the NFL against the pass. They're allowing nearly 280 yards per game. This sets up very nicely for a big night from Trevor Lawrence.
It does. And I think, you might be fooled if you just look at the game log and say, well, he had 152 last week against Houston, only 229 against the Jets. Well, the Jets game was raining throughout. It was basically pouring for a lot of the second half. The Jags went with a very quick pass approach, almost nothing down the field. I think that changes. I think they have to be aggressive. And look, I don't know that they're going to have that much success on the ground. So the one thing that they've been able to lean on during this late season run is the passing game. And Trevor Lawrence, it really feels like he's starting to arrive in that regard. And he's confident. I think the receiving core is much better now than it was earlier in the season. I mean, getting Evan Ingram to play like a borderline Pro Bowler is maybe Trevor Lawrence's greatest accomplishment so far in his career. So all of this is to say I like the more here, partially because I just don't know that Jacksonville is going to be able to get the run game going.
Yeah, I like the more as well. And, it's crazy what happens when you bring in an offensive coach and an offensive coaching staff that knows what they're doing with young quarterbacks. I think there's some other teams around the NFL that should maybe take the hint there and do that.
Who's to say?
Going into next season. Josh Dobbs on the other side, 199.5 passing yards is his line. 232 last week against Dallas. Kind of balled out for what we were expecting. He had 39 attempts in that one too. The Jags are allowing over 240 yards per game, and they've allowed opposing quarterbacks to throw for more than 200 yards in 13 of 16 games this season. The three that didn't, Zach Wilson, Davis Mills, and Matt Ryan.
Yes, the big three, the three horsemen, as they're called. This is a really tough line. It's a great job by Brian setting this line. 199.5. Last week, obviously he went over it pretty easily. I don't know that he gets to 40 attempts. That was such a unique situation because they didn't have Derrick Henry.
Right.
And when they have him, obviously he's the offense and he could carry the ball 25 to 30 times in this game. So I will say I'm a little scared of Josh Dobbs. He played for the Jags. He has insider information. Honestly, probably shouldn't even be allowed to play in this game legally. Just like an insider trading type of thing. But I think with Derrick Henry back, we see a slightly more conservative approach with Josh Dobbs. Now, if Tennessee's trailing, maybe they let it rip and he goes more here. But I'm gonna take the less just because I think Tennessee, at least in the first half, is going to be a lot more focused on getting Derrick Henry going.
Yeah, I'm slightly scared of Josh Dobbs. That's a phrase I never thought I would ever hear.
I am. He's a smart guy, airospace engineer. I don't know if you heard about that. They mentioned that once or twice on the broadcast.
That's right. All right. Derrick Henry, 998.5 rushing yards is his more or less. He's expected to play this week after sitting out last week with a hip injury against the Cowboys. He's reached 99 yards in 8 of 15 games this season, had 121 against the Jags last time, and he had 117, with 3 minutes left to go in the second quarter. So good job bottling him up in the second half, I guess.
Yeah, I think you almost had a slip of the tongue there. I think you were going to say 900 rushing yards, which honestly I'd have to think about that. I would go less on 900, but maybe not by much. I love the more here. I think Henry carries the ball a ton, even though the Jags know it's coming. That's been the case for the last 5 years, and it just hasn't mattered. He runs all over them every time. Weird game last time where, like you said, he had that huge first half, looked like he might run for 250 yards, but then fumbles the ball twice. Tennessee ends up turning it over 4 times, and the game just completely got away from them. So to me, obviously, if you're the Jags, you can't rely on Derrick Henry fumbling the ball multiple times. You can't rely on being +4 in the turnover battle. So I love the more here. I just think no matter what, even though the Jags know that Derrick Henry's getting the ball 3 out of 4 times, on aggregate, he's easily going to get into the triple digits.
Yeah, more just hit it, set it and forget it, as they say on the on that infomercial a while ago. Anyways, anyone else in this matchup that you like? Maybe Travis Etienne, 71.5 rushing yards, 13.5 fantasy points for him.
I would go less on the rushing yards. The one thing there is, like, last week against Houston, he ripped off, I think it was a 61 yarder. Barring something like that, I just don't think he gets there. I think this Titans team has done a really good job stopping the run. And I think I would like to see ETN more involved as a pass catcher. It's just something that the Jags haven't really done. It's like maximum of 1 or 2 catches per game. I would like to see him get more involved in space. So if I have to choose one or the other, I would go more on the fantasy points, but I think less on the yardage for ETN. I just don't. I don't know if they're going to make an effort, especially if it doesn't go well early on. I don't see them continuing to run ETN when they can lean on that pass game.
All right, very good. Moving on to Sunday, there's a lot on the table. The 7 seed in both conferences are up for grabs. The AFC will be decided in the early window. We'll have to wait till Sunday Night Football to get the clear picture for the NFC. But as we kind of talked about, there's a lot at stake here, or a lot of different combinations of what could happen with everything that's going on with this Bills-Bengals game. It sounds like they're not going to play that game at all. Pro Football Talk reporting about an hour ago that Mike Florio is expecting it to be declared a no contest. There's been talks about maybe 8 teams getting into the playoffs now. Just so many different scenarios here, but these teams do have something to play for. Bills-Patriots is going to go on Sunday at 1. So let's start with that one, Nick, and let's talk about Josh Allen. 269.5 passing yards. He's reached this number in 7 of 15 games. But he only threw for 223 yards against the Pats last time. Patriots do rank 16th against the pass, but they're extremely thin in the secondary. It's just corners are dropping like flies for New England. I think this sets up very nicely for the Bills and Josh Allen to throw the ball all over the place if they want to.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, this is, for obvious reasons, like such a difficult game to evaluate. For the Bills, like, we could talk about replaying the Cincinnati game, but I think this is kind of an equally emotional situation. I will say the fact that now we have positive updates on Damar Hamlin. And by the way, Ian Rappaport has a good thread going right now, if you're on Twitter, just about the latest update from the University of Cincinnati Health. Just kind of reiterating that everything's moving in the right direction. The belief is that he has full neurological health, and that'll continue to improve. And Rappaport said that Damar Hamlin was even able to ask who won the game on Monday night, which seems like a extremely, extremely positive sign.
Very, very much so. I'm fully expecting the Bills to rally around this and just slaughter the Patriots on Sunday afternoon. Last year, we all know the playoff game, 7 drives, 7 touchdowns, 0 punts. The Bills did whatever they wanted in that Thursday night game in New England. Sean McDermott hates Bill Belichick. He would love nothing more than to end the Patriots season. I think the Bills are going to go balls to the wall. So I'm smashing them more on just about everything Buffalo related in this one.
Yeah, I think, I'm not really comfortable, like going too far into like the emotional side of this, but like it does feel like this could be galvanizing for Buffalo, right? I think, especially again, because it appears that Damar Hamlin is well on the road to recovery. I think that is a huge sigh of relief for the team. You no longer have that uncertainty in your mind, and I think you feel a lot more comfortable playing this game now if you're Buffalo. So absolutely. Yeah, I view this, I wouldn't say it's like a plus necessarily, but I don't think it's a minus anymore for Buffalo. Right. I think this can now be something that galvanizes the team, as opposed to something that's kind of in the back of your mind, just kind of worried about your teammate.
Yep, I completely agree. On the other side, Mac Jones, 195.5 passing yards. He's reached this number in 8 of 12 games, including 2 straight, as he's maybe shown some signs of improvement here as we close out the season. He had 195 on the dot against the Bills in that Thursday night game about a month ago. The Bills ranked 14th against the pass, allowing 213 yards per game. I would hesitantly take the more on Mac in this one. I think they're just going to have to throw the ball at some point, because I think they're going to be trailing for quite a bit for most of this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the exact same narrative. I mean, he's gone well over this number, in each of the last 2 games, especially that Cincy game. And even if you look back at the end of last year, that game at Buffalo in the playoffs where they just got decimated, he still threw for 232 yards in that game. So I think that could follow a similar script. And Mac, he's looked better of late. I know he obviously went through a pretty rough stretch around the middle of the season, but I think he's starting to look incrementally more like the guy from last season. So yeah, I'll go more.
And Devontae Parker is also practicing this week, which gives the Patriots another weapon there. So the Patriots, if they do somehow win this game Sunday, they get in as the 7th seed in the AFC playoffs. If they lose, though, it opens up a whole bunch of possibilities, starting with the Dolphins. They would somehow be able to get in if they can beat the Jets. We don't have any contests up for this one yet, but we do know it's going to be Mike White versus Sky Thompson. And this one, do you have the faith? Yeah, exactly. Bring it on.
Oh, yeah.
Does the Miami free fall continue Sunday? They've lost, what, 5 in a row?
They have, yeah. There are rumors now that, ownership is not going to be thrilled if they lose this game. And, Mike McDaniel could be one and done, which to me would be insane. I think there are several other teams that would snap him up in a heartbeat. It's interesting. I mean, the Jets are 1-point favorites at Miami here. And obviously the Jets are eliminated. So they're getting the Skylar Thompson markdown, and rightfully so. I mean, Thompson it's had a couple moments, but on the most part, he's been pretty bad this season. I'm on Miami. I took Miami in our staff picks to win this game just because they have something to play for, and I think they have the vastly better skill position players on offense. And the Jets defense has been a little shaky of late. It's still a good defense, but I didn't really think it showed up against Jacksonville. I didn't think it showed up last week against Seattle, and only getting to 6 points against that Seattle defense, to me, that's more concerning. Mike White, look, love the guy. Seems like a cool dude. Way better than Zach Wilson. He's become vastly overrated. Overrated. He won one game against the Chicago Bears, and now the expectation is that he's just like whenever he starts, the Jets automatically win. That has not been the case at all. So
if somehow the Patriots lose, if somehow the Dolphins also lose, that opens the door for Pittsburgh as well. They play the Cleveland Browns. Kenny Pickett, 199.5 yards is his line on MKF this week. He's thrown for 200 yards just 4 times this season. Cleveland ranks 7th against the pass. Pickett, I think the word I would use to describe him is gutsy. He had a great final drive against Baltimore on Sunday night last week. That throw to Najee Harris for the game-winning touchdown was awesome. I think I would still buy stock in him if I'm a Steelers fan. I think he really can be the guy. But how do you feel about him going into this game and this number here, Nick?
I like the Steelers here. I really do. I think they're just a team that I trust more. I think when it comes to coaching, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to veterans on this roster, I know Cleveland has looked a little better of late, but I'm not really sure it matters here. There's still nothing on the line for the Browns. The only case is that they want to play spoiler for the division. And look, I know Kenny Pickett is not exactly on a superstar trajectory, but he's played well. He's played, I think, better than expected, especially these last few weeks. He's made huge throws against both the Raiders and last week against the Ravens. I think this game plays out very similarly to a lot of the more recent Steelers games where it's close throughout. Maybe they get off to a slow start and then they somehow pull out a win 14-12. It's always some weird score in the AFC North. So I like the Steelers here, plenty on the line. They could still make the playoffs. Mike Tomlin's non-losing season streak, obviously at play here as well. And, Deshaun Watson had 3 touchdowns last week. He completed 9 passes. He only attempted 18. I don't really think Cleveland has solved anything on offense.
No, neither do I. But Watson's number is 179.5. He's reached this number just once in 5 games this season. Pittsburgh's allowing 225 yards per game. Maybe I kind of like the more here on this one. I think they might be able to get something going here, and he can at least get to 180. Amari Cooper is very good, and he's been finding him with consistency here the past few weeks.
Amari Cooper is good, but I also think the Pittsburgh defense continues to get better and better. The healthier that they've gotten down the stretch. So I don't know. I just can't. I'm not a Watson guy. Honestly, it doesn't even have anything to do with the off-field stuff. I just don't think he's been very good since he's come back. So I'll go less here. I think the Pittsburgh defense steps up.
All right. The other matchup in the AFC North, it's the battle for the division winner, the division lead. Baltimore at Cincinnati. Lamar Jackson still not practicing. Harbaugh won't really comment on his playoff availability either, so it doesn't sound too good for Lamar. The Ravens haven't scored more than 17 points since November. What are you expecting in this one? I think Cincinnati is going to be able to basically just roll the ball out and win this one.
I feel the same way. Obviously they're kind of in a similar situation as Buffalo, where you kind of want the emotional side of this, and it's kind of unclear what's at stake as far as whether that game gets resumed. But yeah, I think it's kind of a business as usual situation for Cincinnati. I think you have to, until the league says otherwise, you have to assume that maybe you're going to play that Bills game at some point, which could create a situation where if you lose this, you lose the division. So there's still a lot on the line for Cincinnati. And yeah, long term with the Ravens, you got to start to worry. I mean, I think it felt like last week we were supposed to see Lamar, and all of a sudden this week, he's not practicing at all. They feels like they need a little bit more time that they're just not going to get for him to come back. So I'm surprised that this line is all the way up at 7, but at the same time, the Ravens cannot move the ball. They really couldn't move the ball that well with Lamar, and it's just been disastrous with Tyler Huntley. So yeah, I do like the Bengals here. I'm not sure to which degree they roll, but I do like them to cover the 7.
Yeah, it's such a weird week with spreads and everything is just so weird this week.
Yeah.
It always is the final week of the season, just going back and forth on picks and all that kind of stuff and who you think is going to cover. It's just, I don't know. The lines, I hate them. They just make me very angry this week. I hate them.
But you say the Lions or the Lions?
Well, I mean, I don't hate the Lions. I find the Lions entertaining. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But we'll get to the Lions Green Bay game in a minute. Let's talk about the 4:00 window. Basically, it's the battle for the 1 seed in the NFC. Giants, Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders, 49ers, Cardinals, all playing in that time slot. Let's start with this Giants-Eagles game. Jalen Hurts is expected to be back. He's practicing 229.5 passing yards is his more or less on MKF this week. He's reached this number in 8 of 14 games that he's played. Finished with 217 against the Giants in that blowout a few weeks ago. It seems like the Giants might be resting starters here because they are locked into the 6th seed.
Well, first of all, the Celtics just traded Noah Vonleh to the Spurs, so I want to make sure we just give that the attention it deserves.
I think they're about to play this weekend too.
Ooh, interesting. Another insider trading situation.
Oh boy.
But no, you're right on the Giants. I mean, I know Brian Dable has been cagey about it, as almost every coach is, but if you look at the line, it's 14. I think the expectation is that even if Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley and Kayvon Thibodeau, even if those guys suit up, they're not playing more than a series or two just to kind of keep their regular routine. So this should be a walk in the park for the Eagles. I'll go more on Jalen Hurts. I mean, I do kind of want to see what he looks like. That's fair to question, but 229.5 for a game that the Eagles absolutely need to win, because I think if you're the Eagles, you're also assuming that Dallas is going to win. You're assuming that Minnesota is going to win. You're assuming that San Francisco is going to win. And you obviously want that 1 seed badly. It's a huge advantage as the only team with a bye. So I think the Eagles kind of get back to being the Eagles, build some confidence heading into the postseason and lock up that 1 seed.
They need to, right? They've been shaky the past few weeks. Gardner Minshew kind of had a meltdown last week. They just need to get going. They need to get Hurts going and get some momentum building, as you said, going into the playoffs. Daniel Jones on the other side, his numbers at 169.5. He's hit this number in 13 of 16 games, but we don't know how long we're going to see him. He had 169 against Philly on the dot the last time they met. They matched up.
Yeah, that one's tough for me. I think I would go less there. Just I feel like that's kind of the conservative play here, but I don't have a super strong lean on this one. What about you?
Yeah, I'd go less and just pray that they pull him, because as long as he plays 1 series on MKF, that is locked in for you. So I'd go less there, because I just don't think he's going to get to that number. He's definitely not going to do what he did last week and just completely ball out like he did against the Colts. So
no, I would be shocked if he plays enough to hit that number. So yeah, I mean, if you want to play it that way and just kind of hope that, like you said, if he plays it down, then you're good.
Yep, exactly. And then how about AJ Brown? 79.5 receiving yards for AJB. 8 out of 16 games he's hit this number, including each of the last 3. He's 99 yards away from 1,500 on the season. Do you think they try to get him there?
I could see it. I feel like Sirianni's the type of coach that could maybe, kind of buy into that narrative. But I also think it could just happen by default, right? I mean, we're talking about the Giants resting starters on the offensive end. They could very well be doing the same on defense. So should be a really good spot for Philly. I think the question is, if they do build a big lead in the first half, are they pulling their own starters in the second?
Yeah, exactly. But I like AJB to get there. I don't think he's going to go full Mike Evans on us like last week.
No.
But I do think he's going to have a good game in this one. Moving on, Dallas at Washington. We'll touch on this one quick. It's Dak Prescott versus Sam Howell. Dak, how about let's talk about this, Nick? More or less 1.5 interceptions for Dak Prescott on Sunday. He's thrown 10 in his last 6 games.
Yeah, this is actually kind of a tough line. I think even like 0.5 would maybe be a little better. Like I'll go less on 1.5, but yeah, I mean, last week against Tennessee, we're just saying like, oh man, this is such a perfect spot for the Cowboys. They should be able to move the ball. Dak's turning the ball over left and right. They have 10 points at the half. So this on paper is another kind of walk in the park situation, but Dallas has a way of making these more complicated than they need to be. So I'll go less on the interceptions, but I don't see this being a picture perfect day for Dak.
The other story in this game, did you happen to see that the Washington Commanders unveiled their new mascot last week?
Is water wet? Yeah, Major Tuddy. I'm well aware.
What thoughts on Major Tuddy? Because this franchise cannot get anything right. I mean, hey guys, let's look away from all of our investigations and ongoing scandals and our owner being terrible. Look at this new mascot that we got that has pissed off the actual Hogs from the 80s, and they might be filing a lawsuit against the franchise now for making fun of them with this mascot.
The one thing, and any team, any PR department will tell you that the one thing that you want when you launch a new mascot is to be sued by former legends of your team. That's kind of the thing you're looking to accomplish. So Washington nailed that for sure. On the mascot himself, like Major Tuddy, it's not a terrible name. I'm not a fan of the word Tuddy. I don't think I've ever said that, but I get that a lot of people say it. Whatever. The pig is a little too human-like, I guess. It's like too anthropomorphic. And my biggest complaint is like the outfit. It kind of looks like just like a white t-shirt tucked into a pair of pants, and he has like a beer belly. It doesn't really look very pig-like. It looks kind of sloppy. It doesn't look like an NFL mascot. Like those are expensive suits. Take Jackson DeVille, for example. I mean, that is kind of that's the gold standard, of course, in the NFL. And I think just in terms of the look of Major Tuddy, there's some work that needs to be done.
Absolutely. Did you ever play the Batman Arkham games?
No, I played sports games. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. So the Batman Arkham games, there was one villain that you would have to like hunt down as Batman. But what he would do is he would kill people and then he would put like pig faces on them. And that's exactly what Major Tuddy looks like. I don't remember the name, but it's very creepy and very comic book like from the Washington Commanders. So San Francisco, Arizona. Can Arizona keep this game within 2 touchdowns?
Probably not. But stranger things have happened. I think the bigger question is, San Francisco has something to play for here. This game is happening at the same time as Cowboys Commanders. It's happening at the same time as Giants Eagles. So if you're the Niners, you have no choice but to assume that, the 1 seed or the 2 seed is potentially still in play. So you got to play hard, but obviously you're scoreboard watching. They'll know what's going on in Washington and Philly. And if those teams are, if they have the game in hand midway through the third quarter, I think it's completely reasonable that the 49ers pull back. I don't even know who the emergency quarterback is at this point for the Niners. I'm sure they brought in somebody. But they could be up 20-3 at halftime and then, maybe not score again the rest of the way. So it's actually kind of a tricky line to me. That there's really no reason to think that Arizona wins this game, but totally possible that they could sneak in a backdoor cover.
Is Nick Mullins still around? Is he the backup still?
I don't think so. He was on a different team at some point. He's on the Vikings.
He's
on the Vikings.
Josh Johnson.
So according to Rotowire.com, Josh Johnson is the backup.
He's still there. I think this is like his 5th time in San Francisco.
Something like that. He's played for everybody, I think.
Basically, I'm looking at this game. If I'm the 49ers, we talked about the Eagles getting some mojo and building confidence here. Mm-hmm. I would think you want to get some mojo back on your defense because you cannot get lit up by Jarrett Stidham and David Blau in back-to-back weeks going into the playoffs. It just doesn't sit right with me if I was a 49ers fan at all. So moving on, Sunday Night Football, NFL, I think they made the right decision. You put the Packers and the Lions on Sunday night, the biggest brand with the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, superstar. The Lions are a good story with Hard Knocks and all that kind of stuff. Lambeau Field too as well. So if the Seahawks lose to the Rams in the 4:00 window, this will be a true win and get in for both teams. It'll be the battle for that final playoff spot. Detroit, though, they are eliminated if the Seahawks win, but they can play spoiler and end the Packers season. The Pack, they're looking impressive. The stock is up. Everything's pointing up for Green Bay right now. They dominated the Vikings. National chatter is starting. It's starting to heat up about a potential deep playoff run for this team, Nick. But what's the message? What's the word in Wisconsin right now?
Well, I tell you what, I will be on the scene. I'm going to Lambeau Field on Sunday. So pretty happy that this ended up being the night game, just for football preparation purposes, we'll say. But yeah, I'm pumped. That the only other Packers game I went to this year was that Titans Thursday night game, which was just a ridiculously pathetic effort from start to finish. But I'll say this, I think the pulse in Wisconsin is that there's just a lot of assumptions that they're just going to win this game. And there's already talk of like, well, how do they match up against the 49ers? Like, I don't think this is a given. This is not the John Kitna Detroit Lions, right? I mean, this is a real team that has already beaten Green Bay, that, easily put up 38 last week against the Bears, could have scored way more if they wanted. I think the Packers need to focus on winning this game. The Lambeau advantage feels like it's kind of faded in recent years. Like, it's no longer just a complete gimme anytime you have a team coming in December or January. So I understand Green Bay's favored. It's basically 4.5 across the board. That's where it's held all week. They should win this game. They're in a good spot, but it's not a guarantee by any means. I just feel like people are talking about it like they're playing a 2-win Lions team.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions have been good. They're fun. They're exciting. They hang in pretty much every single week.
Exactly.
And they put up points in bunches, as they've shown throughout the season. Aaron Rodgers, his number in this one on MKF, 235.5 passing yards. He's only hit this number 5 times this season, but that does include 291 yards against the Lions earlier, which was his season high. And the Lions are ranked 30th against the pass. They're allowing 250 yards per game.
Rodgers has been so hard to figure out because even in the games where it feels like he plays well, he doesn't even rack up that much yardage. I thought he played well against Minnesota, 159 yards. And
right.
Obviously they got a defensive score and a kick return and all that. So he didn't have that many attempts. But yeah, he's still an elite quarterback at times, but it's been a while since he's been a big yardage quarterback. Not even this season, but even the last 2 years. He's nowhere near the top of the league in yardage anymore. I'm going to go less here. Detroit's real issue is stopping the run. They are by far the worst run defense in the league by EPA. So I think if this game goes the way Green Bay hopes it goes and they win, I don't think it's because Aaron Rodgers throws for 270 yards and 4 touchdowns. I think it's because Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are running wild.
And then on the other side, you got Jared Goff, 269.5 passing yards. This number caught me by surprise when looking at it. He's only reached this number 6 times this season. He threw for a season low 137 against Green Bay last time they met, and Green Bay's ranked 4th against the pass this season, allowing 195 yards per game. I'm hitting less here on this one.
I think you have to. I think less is the sharp play, if you will. I could see it going either way. Like the Green Bay secondary has been fantastic these last couple of weeks. I mean, a ton of takeaways, playing more aggressively. It feels like they figured something out scheme-wise that just wasn't there earlier this year. And then on top of that, Jared Goff outside, I think he has 23 of his 29 touchdowns have come at home this season, which is ridiculous. So there's a lot of numbers that push you to the under here. I'm with you. I'll be going less when I play on MKF on Sunday, but at the same time, I still don't quite trust this Green Bay secondary. Like, they've been burned, Equinemius St. Brown, burned Jair Alexander a couple times when they played a few weeks ago. So that's still in the back of my mind. I could kind of see Detroit, ripping off some big plays early in this game, trying to set the tone. So I'm cautious about it, but I think you have to go less.
Yeah, I think when you put the two sides up against each other, right, both untrustworthy with the Green Bay secondary and Jared Goff, well, you have this game in prime time, national television at night, standalone game. I cannot back Jared Goff. I'm sorry. I'm going Green Bay.
Yeah. I do wish Green Bay had Rashawn Gary back, just for pass rush purposes, because I know the indoor-outdoor thing is so big with Goff, but it's not going to be that cold. Going to be almost no wind on Sunday night. So it's not like he's walking into like a 5-degree snowstorm with 20-mile-per-hour winds. Like, I don't think the conditions are actually going to be all that bad. And if Green Bay can get to him and pressure Jared Goff, they're going to be in great shape. But if that offensive line holds up, which it's been decent this year, that's going to create some issues for that Packers secondary, because Detroit has weapons. They have the best receiver in this game, and they have a pair of really good running backs.
So I'll just give you a couple skill guys quick here, and then we'll wrap up. Aaron Jones, 59.5 rushing yards, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is 77.5 receiving yards.
I'll go more on Aaron Jones if he makes it through this game. That's like a weekly thing now. You look great last week against Minnesota. Obviously didn't really have to do much in the second half of that game, but he's one of those guys that could break off 2 20-yard runs in the first half, and all of a sudden you're almost there. So I think that's a pretty friendly number for Jones. St. Brown, that's a really good one. Another good job by Brian setting that line. 77.5. I'll go more, slightly more. And I think the assumption there is that the Lions are going to need to keep up with Green Bay. They're going to need to throw the ball. And obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown is their number one target. So I'll go more.
Yeah, I love the more on Aaron Jones. He's reached 60 yards every single game. He's had at least 13 carries. I think he's going to get that Sunday night. So I like him to hit the more. Last question here, NFL wise. Who's getting in? Who's staying home? I think Green Bay gets into the NFC. No big shocker there. AFC, I think the Patriots are going to back in. I think all those other teams are going to somehow lose and the Patriots back into the playoffs.
So are the Patriots in if everybody else loses? Like if they lose, they're not eliminated?
The Patriots get in with a win, or Tennessee, Pittsburgh, and Miami lose. All three have to
Tennessee, Pittsburgh, and Miami. Okay. Yeah. All possible. I think, yeah, I've been keeping that in mind too, because the Jags could technically lose to Tennessee and still make it as a wild card, but they really needed Pittsburgh, especially, to lose last week against Baltimore. I mean, as a Pats fan, and the Packers are kind of in the same boat here too. Do you really feel that strongly about the Patriots making it, or is there kind of this sense of, yeah, I guess it's always good to make the playoffs, but I think everybody realizes there's a pretty hard ceiling on this team?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm fully expecting when they do, if they do get in, to get just blown out by either Buffalo, Kansas City, or Cincinnati next week. But no, just the way things have gone for the Patriots this season, I think they've gotten extremely lucky on some of their wins, and I just feel like they're going to back in somehow. Just everything's just going to just come up that they back in.
Yeah. It's certainly things have come up Patriots before in the NFL. That is for sure. But yeah, it's so different in the AFC because you have those top three teams, like you said. Like nobody's going to feel good whether you're playing the Chiefs, the Bills, or the Bengals. Whereas in the NFC, it's like, would I pick Green Bay to win at San Francisco? No, of course not. But at the end of the day, it's still a 49ers team starting a rookie 7th rounder, and nobody really is going to be scared of playing the Vikings. Nobody's really all that scared of playing the Cowboys. And even the Eagles, have shown that they're fallible these last couple of weeks as well. So yeah, it's a totally different story in the AFC versus the NFC.
All right, very good. So Monday night is the national championship game. TCU taking on Georgia out in Los Angeles. Our friend John McKechnie is there. John and I will be doing a full preview show on Monday for you guys, but I do want to get Nick's thoughts heading into this game. And Nick, before I get your thoughts on it, I do want to let everyone know that we have a great promo running Friday afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern time. Stetson Bennett's passing yard line will be 1.5 on MKF. So you just got to hit everybody else's number there to win. It makes it much easier. I think he's going to hit the more there, especially in the fourth quarter. He's playing pretty well. But how do you feel about this game? It's, I believe, the biggest point spread in the national championship game, with Georgia favored by 13.5 points. Are you expecting the Dogs to roll, or do you think the Horned Frogs have a shot here? Maybe Max Duggan pulls a Vince Young and shocks everybody Monday night.
Well, first of all, I think we got to see if we can get a John McKechnie, more or less like 13.5 beers line up on MKF. I think, maybe tack that onto your picks and see if we could boost that a little bit. I would go more, for the record. I hope we get a game. And I think it was encouraging in some ways last week that, Georgia was on the ropes and very well could have lost if that last second field goal had gone through for Ohio State. And, people make the case that obviously Ohio State is a more talented team than TCU. They have the horses offensively to keep up. But I think this line's a little disrespectful, right? I mean, everybody loved Michigan going up against TCU, and I thought TCU did a really good job on both sides. Obviously, the Wolverines were able to get things going in the second half, but 13.5, I understand it, but I think I'll take TCU with the points. I'll take Georgia to win, but I think we get at least a relatively close game here.
I do. I think it's going to be close into the third quarter, and then the Dogs are going to pull away. I think similar.
Yeah, it seems inevitable.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's exciting, though, because now our friend John is about to become the villain. Back-to-back national champions. You're no longer this fun story. Now everybody's going to hate you. So I can't wait to get his thoughts on that on Monday. Yep. But yeah, I agree with you. I would take the more on the 1.5 on Stetson Bennett. If you play.
Yeah, good luck with that show on Monday. I feel like there's going to be a lot of barking in the background.
Exactly. It's the barking on one side, and then you've got the little thing on the other that the the TCU fans do. So very interesting. I'm hoping there's an interaction in the airport that we get to hear about. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to hit subscribe on our YouTube page at Monkey Knife Fight, and good luck in your contest this weekend.